I'm here and I am doing a show and I am constantly tricking myself. There was a time where here's an analogy that worked. One time I was on this Tony Hawk tour where it was televised on ESPN and they were starting to air it. And it was like, ooh, like we're on TV. People were going, hey, man, you're Jason Ellis from the Tony Hawk Tour. And I had already been good at skateboarding, but this was after that. It was when I was announcing for X Games and ESPN. I had an ESPN deal to be an announcer and got a monthly allowance, which was, whew, I think it was like $5,000 a month, which was really good. And I was already pretty washed up when it came to, as far as I was concerned. Like, had I been better at skateboarding? Yes, I had been. Was I still pretty good? Yeah, but not as good as I used to be. And when we would do these demos, Tony Hawk was just still so good, even though he had retired from competing. He's just one of those people that didn't matter what the ramp was, he was good straight away. That's a thing that he's always had, where he adapts to the ramp faster than everybody else, and he's doing things. He usually did a McTwist in the first ride, and I would say, dude, like, I know that it's the Tony Hawk Tour, but can you not do a 540 first ride? Because that's my last ride. And, I was joking, but I was also not. Because I'm like, dude, you're burying me, and I was a little bit, mainly I was 95% joking, but 5% of me was like, give me a second, But I remember it was when I started looking around and saying, what could I do to bring something to this demo that hasn't already been brought? And that's when I discovered rafters and jumping off things that were above the ramp into the ramp. And I was like, you know what Tony Hawk won't do? He won't jump in off the rafters. I knew he wouldn't do that. And I was like, if you do that, that's another thing that you're bringing to the demo. And look, part of it was a little bit of an ego. Like, if I do it, no one else is doing it. But the other thing was, I really was like, if you just do like a mediocre version of what Tony Hawk's doing, why are you here? So I started jumping off things, and it went really well. The crowd love a psycho that will jump off ridiculously high things above a ridiculously high vert ramp. It's incredibly dangerous. And, he's Australian, and, it's everybody's like, that Australian guy, he's crazy, And that was cool. So one demo, because now I'm starting to get used to it, I now go into a skate park. We're going around the country and the world. I go into a skate park, and the first thing I do is I look up and look for things to hang off or jump off. And we were in an indoor skate park, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, it's a street course, no vert ramp. And I'm like, ugh. So people don't know, vert ramps are the U-pipey things, and that's where Jason lives. And then there's the street course. That's where Jason does not. I don't belong. But I still skate because I always skate. I always do my best. I don't duck. I always show up. And I'm looking around in there, and I see this rafter, and it hangs over this particular area that has a quarter pipe where there's transition. And I was like, and it's pretty high. It's in the rafters, I think I'm saying American and Australian rafters. I'm, as you can see, very confused. I look at it and I'm like, if I go up the wall and then walk the rafter until I get into the middle of the street course, I could jump off the rafter into this bank. And the walk is probably like 60 feet. It's a giant area. So I go up this wall, and then I go along the rafters, and people are starting to notice that there is a giant Australian that is walking along the rafters, and they're like, what's he going to do? And then this has happened to me a few times in my career where I get to where I think I'm going to jump off and I look down and I go, shit, that's way too far. I look at it and I remember the crowd is like, no way. Everybody gather around and the MC's like, Jason Ellis is going to jump off the rafter. Who wants to see it? Everyone's like, yeah. And I remember looking down going, if I jump into the pocket, there's no way I can roll away on a skateboard. It's too far. But if I jump down into the pocket, I think I can land on my knee pads and slide down and live. But at least I can't go. I'm not going back down the rafters. I'm not walking back the other way. I'm definitely jumping in. But I also remember going, your career has already been and gone. And now here you are, washed up, and this is my mind, washed up, at a Tony Hawk demo, which is the coolest demo in skateboarding. He's got you here. ESPN's got you here. You're on TV, potentially. What would it take to make it? Is it even possible? And I remember I kept doing this thing with my head where I would go, and I was trying to lean my head off axis to see how I would see my board landing and rolling away. And that was the other thing. The transition was very tight. It wasn't big enough for how far I was falling. And I could tell from doing things like this enough that I was like, how tight the transition is to how the amount of speed that I'm going to get into it. It doesn't seem possible, but there is a chance that you could just and take off and make it. I would have given myself, honestly, I would have given myself a 5% chance that I was going to make it. If you whip out, that's the other thing. I have whipped out before and I was in and out of consciousness for like 6 hours. I woke up in hospital with a person wiping down my penis and balls with a warm towel and nose. That wasn't fun. That was emotional. I don't want that to happen, but here you are. I jumped in without any intention of putting the board down. And when I jumped in, as I fell down, as I got closer to where I was going to land, I was like, ooh, I see where you could land it. And I really didn't have anything else to offer in this demo. The rest of the course was just not suitable for anything that I could do. Everybody else, there's Costins, all these ripping skateboarders, they're all holding their own, they're all ripping. And I'm like, this is it. This is all you've got, And I'm just going to go up there and go. And I remember it got to the point where I had jumped in, I don't know, like 4 or 5 times. And people were like, whoa, he almost did it that time. And then I remember, I'm faking it. It's a pose. I know I'm not going to stand on it. I'm jumping in. I was putting the board on my feet. I was dive bombing in. And then at the last second, I would pull it out of the way and knee slide. And people were like, whoa, I can't believe he's even thinking about making that. And I just kept faking it. And then there was this one time where I faked it and held onto it a little longer. And I was like, I see it. I see how I could roll away from this. Still, I would have said at this point from faking it, like they say, fake it till you make it, that there was a chance that I could make this. And I don't think it's for the right reasons, looking back. I thought the one reason that I felt was a good reason was you're saying goodbye to skateboarding.